Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. This is a session that I'm actually doing this session for the first time, but building a monitoring system with remoting is something that I have done for the past year. This is all based on all the struggle that I had for a company that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of instances of SQL Server, and they're all in hundreds and hundreds of non-trusted domains. It's a hosting company, and they wanted a monitoring system in place. What do we do, right? You can put SCOM in there, and yeah, that was not in the model, so they couldn't buy the licenses and such, and you have to do certificates and all these things, so we looked at using PowerShell a bit, and we did some testing with PowerShell, and it went well, and somebody said, go make this. So we did. It was a lot of fun. Let me show you what we did. First of all, this is me. My name is Andre Kamman. I'm Dutch. And the question has come up a few times already, and it always does. If you have questions about the Netherlands, because that's where I'm from, I have no idea how a coffee shop works. I have never been inside one. I don't know. Sorry. Only thing I do know is you have a smoking ban in public places, probably, like we do. You can't smoke cigarettes inside a bar, which is kind of a problem if you have a coffee shop to run, right? So we made an amendment to the law. It is now okay to smoke cannabis in a coffee shop. Not cigarettes. That would be illegal. I'm not kidding. So I've been doing this since 1989, so I've been an IT geek for 25 years already. Grew up, like a lot of you, I guess, with a Commodore 64. Spectrum guys in the room? Okay. You guys had it easy. The Spectrum had for every keyword they had a key. Right? Like Visual Basic 3 and beyond, right? The code completion stuff. For me, becoming an MVP like 6 or 7 years ago, is a bit of full circle. The Commodore 64 was my hobby, and I turned it into my profession. This MVP thing brings the hobby back into the work. I like talking about what I did. Spent a whole year building a PowerShell thing, and now I get to talk to people, and doesn't really matter which way you go with this. If you go at the end of the session, awesome, I'm going to download this and try this myself, cool. If you think after an hour, yeah, that won't work for us, but it's good, because then in 1 hour, I've saved you a lot of time, right? So if it's not for you, also good. The goal is to learn something here. All right. Let's see. Why would you do this? Because there are third-party monitoring systems around. There is lots of them. Redgate, SQL Sentry, SCOM. Sometimes I see a combination of SCOM and then something else on top of it for specialistic purposes. This is not really for performance monitoring in stuff. I'm not even there yet. I'm not even worried about that. I was in a situation where a colleague was asked, hey, how many enterprise editions and how many standard editions do we have? It took him 3 weeks to log on to every box and count the stupid things. That's why we did this, right? Not even to know, is the CPU high? Is there the query cache okay? No. What version do we have? Simple questions. How many? How many surprised us as well. Once we counted everything, ooh, that many? We didn't know that. SQL servers. So, in my case, it was hundreds, literally. Somewhere between 500 and 800. I'm not allowed to say how many exactly. And I've done this before without PowerShell in VB script and whatnot for over 1,000 instances where we just needed to know stuff. And I'm convinced that you need this if you have 5 systems. You need to know. Even if you have 2, like a cluster, are they both equal? Run a PowerShell script. Why compare these things? I don't get that. So this is just my conviction. If you don't, okay, it's fine with me. So I've also seen attempts to build a monitoring system or a repository fail, because you start out, and this is a geek thing, right? Without a manager to control us, because managers, they've been to school and they go stand behind you and you go, are you done yet? But a geek will do this and then type away for 6 months, then have a system that does all of the things, and it will be useless because you'll be buried in a hundreds of gigabytes of data that you really don't need. I've had one where the developer decided to take SMO and just go through every object and store it in a database. Completely useless. Also, it blew up a server. Something that you maybe want to be careful about, if you run something on all your boxes in your entire environment, make sure your script doesn't screw up something, right? Let me put a broad statement out here. Who has a lot of databases on one instance? Next question. More than 1,000? Already no more hands. I had one with 11,000 databases on them. Try running something on it, right? So be careful. Also, I use a bunch of community-based scripts. I have to ask this. I do this every time because I like the guy and the scripts are amazing. Who uses Ola Hallengren's scripts? Less than half. I need to talk to the guy in his own backyard. If you don't know it, Google Ola Hallengren. Maintenance solution, backup scripts, they're really smart, they do everything for you. If you're still using maintenance plans, throw them away today. Go out, leave the room, go to your computer, throw them out. No, don't leave the room. But I use a lot of community-based scripts. Ola Hallengren, Adam Mechanic, SP Who Is Active is on every box that I have. And Brent Ozar's SP Blitz is very useful, right? I use that as well. It gives me a lot of configuration information and a hint of what may be wrong. It's not the only thing I use, but it's a start. I use that a lot. So, and that comes with the last warning I want to give. Some of them have copyright statements. Like, if you're a consultant, don't build a tool or a service and put my script in there and say this is powered by Brent Ozar or something. You can't do that. So you need to read these things. SP Who Is Active has one. Brent Ozar's SP Blitz has one. I'll be mindful of these things. Easiest thing to do, what I do, tell my customers to install SP Blitz, and I'll use it. And they like it that way as well. So they discover all the other scripts that they have and that are around and everything. So, what do I monitor? We talked about this already. I monitor basically everything that I want to monitor, and I build a script for everything that I want to monitor. So I literally have over 100 scripts that monitor stuff that I want to monitor. One specific incident started all of this for me. I was working for a large bank in the Netherlands, and there was a SharePoint environment, a big SharePoint environment, and I made a backup, and I needed to copy the backup off the system. So I go to the Explorer, grab the file, drag it to the side, I drop it, boom, performance dead. Windows needs a lot of memory to copy a large file. This was a 200 gigabyte backup. And Windows decided to put SQL Server into the swap file. It swapped out the pages, right? There goes my performance. Manager comes to you and says, do you know what happened? Can you fix it? Can you make sure this never happens again? This is a bank, so you have to fill out a report of why the outage was and yada, yada, yada. So an hour later, everything is up and running. I'm filling out these reports, and I've changed the setting. I've locked pages in memory. That will never happen to me again. Now, I go back to the system, grab the file, copy it across, kill it again. Yes, and they didn't fire me still. I killed the whole... This is the SharePoint for the whole freaking bank. Killed it twice in one day. So 3 managers behind me. I thought you fixed it. I did. This is something else. Because what happens if you lock pages in memory, but you keep the memory setting of SQL Server really high, and Windows just does not have enough memory, but it cannot move the largest memory consumer into the swap file, it will start looking for other victims that it can put in the swap file or kill, right? So it decided to kill the TCP/IP stack. I found it in the error log. Windows SQL Server has stopped listening on port number, yada, yada, yada. Now, how does that relate to this? The next question was, Andre, on how many servers do we have this setting? Is the memory too high? What does Windows use? What do we need to change and where? I need a report on my desk by tomorrow morning. And we had hundreds of SQL Server instances. So that's where you're in trouble if you have to, because at the time we had to grab an Excel sheet with all the names of all the instances. We were 6 guys. Okay, guys, everybody take a few hundred servers, log on, and find out, and fill out an Excel. That was an all-nighter. Never again, right? This is what PowerShell is for. This is what PowerShell needs to do. So, like I said, this session I'm going, for this session, my system is a bit more complicated in the meantime. I can't show you the actual system. They've paid me to build it for them. It would be a bit weird to give it away at a presentation at the first conference that will have me talk about it. But we'll build a simple version of it that actually does what I do there. And I'm going to use SP Blitz to monitor the basics. I'm going to check if there's a maintenance plans installed on the box because I personally hate them. And I'm going to check if Ola Hallengren's scripts are installed on there. So I can see if I have backup problems, which way do I need to fix it. Right. Now, there are a few ways to access remote servers without using PowerShell remoting. There are commands that have like a machine name thing built into them or something. But that doesn't allow you to do anything you want. You can only use those commands. If you want to know in PowerShell what the commands are, the last thing on the list here will give you a list of the commands that support the machine name option. But you don't have to use that. What we're going to do is we're going to use remoting. And this is how you switch it on. You type enable PS remoting on a server that you want to remote into. This will start a service, open up a hole in the firewall, and do some other configuration stuff. So from another system, you can remote into that and talk to the thing as if you were logged on to that box, which is really useful. This is from inside a domain, and it states the firewall ports that you need to open if there's a firewall in between. But you can also do it if you don't have a domain. You just have to set the trusted hosts file, and I'll show you at the end how to do that. It's a very simple command for that. And also, if you're connecting to non-trusted domains, if you're not in the same domain as the thing that you're going to, you're going to have to specify an IP address as a computer name, and you have to pass credentials, because you have to pass that. You can't use the credentials of you, because you can't connect to that domain. You have to pass the credentials of the user on that box that you want to pretend that you are, right? Also, if you're on a box, remoted into, and you want to go from there to another box, if you want to read something from a file share while you're logged on, you need a credential delegation, because it will not, otherwise it will not allow you to use that credential again, unless you hop onto that box and copy the file. Now, let me show you the basics. Very simple way to start this. First, we're going to need a couple of credentials, your username and password if you log onto another box. If you don't, it will just use whatever you are logged into right now. So if you want to schedule this thing, that would work. Just don't pass credentials if you're on the same domain. I like to type in a bunch of credentials and save them somewhere. Am I saving a username password? Yes, but secure. I'll show you. Somebody's laughing. Secure, right. I've heard that one. Man. So, very simple command, get credential. Will ask me for my credentials, store them in the credential variable, and then I'll show them to you. So this just asks for the credentials, so I'll need to, I need to type them correctly. Here we go. And then it shows me the object that I've just created. And as you can see, the password is a secure string. I can even save this out to a file. You won't be able to see this. This, underneath the covers, uses the Windows Data Protection API. That means it only works if I encrypt it I can only unencrypt it with the account that I've just used, and only on the machine that I've just done that on. So if I move that file to a different server, can't read it. If I keep the file here, but my colleague logs on and tries to read it, sorry, won't work. So choose a user account on this box that you want to run the scripts under, and save the credentials underneath, under that one, right? Now, saving the credentials is very simple. Just say export CLI XML. This is a PowerShell native thing, and it will store it in a PowerShell object format. And it will make sure that your secure string is still secure. And if I do this, it has saved it. I can show you the file. I'm modding my credentials, and if I open this up, sure. Here we go. You can see what it did there. This password is encrypted. So far okay on the password stuff, right? Now, let's go here. And I'll reset it. Now I'm going to create a remote session to a server and use this credential. So I'm reading the credential with the import CLI XML command, and now I'm starting a remote session. I'm doing this with new PS session. This is interactive. We're going to use the non-interactive form later. But I'm just going to specify the computer name that I want to connect to, and I have a name for my remote session. And I stick it into the session variable, right? And we're done. I have a remote session now to a computer. I can use it. I can actually go in there. I didn't do that in my demo. Huh. Enter PS session. Here we go. And now I'm logged onto this remote computer. Everything I do now is not on this machine, but on the other machine. Obviously, I've connected to localhost. So I am doing this thing, but instead of bringing a big box with hundreds of servers, I thought I'd just connect locally. But this is how it works. Now I am logged onto this remote machine. And this is how you leave it again, right? Very simple. You can do anything you want. Whatever rights you have with the credentials that you logged in, that's what you can do on the other machine. There's no secret hidden stuff. You're just logged on. All right. Now, the thing that we're going to use most is something called invoke command. This is the non-interactive one. So you don't have to build a session and then enter it and then type stuff. No, you just run something called invoke command. I'm going to feed it this session variable, and I'm going to give it just a command through a script block. I'm going to ask for a directory, the same directory I just did. And let me see. Let's do this. Here we go. So this is what the command gave back. You can see that their command gives a slightly different feedback than normally, because there's a column at the end, the PS computer name. That's how you can see you're in a remoting session. You can actually suppress it, but as soon as you save the results to a file or save it somewhere else, it will be back. You can only repress it in the view, which is a bit useless, so I don't do that. It's a very simple way of logging on to a different box, getting some information, and logging out again. Now, there's a few ways to do this. As you can see, I have a command here with a script block. Also, I can connect to multiple machines at the same time. I'm not doing that in my environment, but you can do that here. You just connect through a whole bunch of machines. Obviously, if you have 600, this will be a long command, so that's why I'm not doing that. You can, instead of a script block, run something that is in a file. This is a local file, not on the machine that you're connecting to, right? So you run something that you have locally. And what I'm doing here is I'm running a certain file on a whole bunch of servers that come from a file. So instead of feeding it a comma-separated list, I get the list from a file. So there's the servers.txt has a list of servers, and basically what I'm saying is run this PowerShell command on these servers. That's all I'm doing. Now, when I build the first poor man's monitoring system, here we go. Done. That's it. Read a list of servers and run a script on it. That's all you have to do. This goes through the servers and runs all these commands on them. Don't worry, the actual system that I'm going to show you later is much complicated, more complicated than this. You're going to learn more than this, right? So, function shift F5. Yeah, works. I'm running a fruit device here, and I need to press a different combination of keys sometimes in Windows if I'm not in Windows. So if you hear music all of a sudden, that's not part of the show. I'm just pressing the wrong button here. So after doing that, after doing this remoting stuff, and I'll show you later how to build a whole, how to put it all together. But I put my data into SQL Server. Now, normally to run queries, you would use invoke SQL command. If you're still doing that in PowerShell, stop doing that. It has a nasty bug. It times out after 60 seconds. Even if you say timeout is 1 or 0 or -1, the one that's the default that says unlimited, doesn't work. It's a minute. So the only way to have a long timeout is to give it the maximum of the variable, which is 65,000 seconds or something. And if you run a backup command or something that runs for hours, you're still going to run into this timeout. So don't use it. Google for, or Bing, whatever, for invoke SQL command 2. It's something somebody wrote, and it does exactly the same thing, but doesn't have this bug. Very simple. Just download that, use that, easier. The guy who wrote it actually was a guy called Chad Miller, and he wrote a bunch of other scripts that I'm using here as well. I use out data table, which turns whatever I get back from PowerShell into a data table, so I can bulk insert it into a SQL server. There is add SQL table that reads that data table structure and creates a SQL server table if I don't have it yet. Could be useful. I've used it a lot in the beginning. I'm not doing that anymore that much, but I have a staging schema, and every time I have something new, I just, here's an object, go create me a table, easy. And then there's write data table that takes that data table that I've just created from the PowerShell object and bulk copies it into the SQL Server. So with these three things, I can actually do whatever I want to do in PowerShell, get a result back, and then throw it into SQL Server. If the table doesn't exist, this thing will make it for me, in a staging schema, of course, and then I'll handle it, right? I made some changes to the thing, because the original command does not support a schema. Everything was entered into DBO, and I wanted a staging schema, so I've amended it a bit. You're not really supposed to do that with community scripts. This guy didn't put a trademark on it or nothing, so I changed it. And then the write data table doesn't need that. It just supports the two-part name, so I can put staging dot table name, and that works. On some things it doesn't work, because sometimes PowerShell gives you two objects like unioned into one, and this thing breaks, and I'll show you. And then if that happens, you need to create, from that thing that breaks, you need to create your own PowerShell object that is processable by this, by these commands if you want to keep using them. So that's a step you're going to have to make. All right, let me show you how that works. Yes, there you go. Now, I've got the scripts in something called community functions. So I'm going to load that first. This is called dot sourcing for some reason. You have to put a dot, a space, and then the name of the file. This is like an include. And I'm loading SMO, because it uses SMO. For those of you who know PowerShell 3 and 4, there is a newer way to load these assemblies. I'm not using it yet because like 10 or 15 of the servers that I need to connect to are Windows Server 2003. They don't have that version, it doesn't work there, so I stick with what works on everything. Much easier. All right, that's loaded. Now, this is the thing that doesn't work. If you do this, you will see a lot of errors. Now, I'm just trying to take a dir command and stick it into this out data table function. So why does that not work? Well, in my case, the dir command has two types. It has a directory info and a file info, because in the list that I got back are directories and files. So there's two types in there, and they have different properties. So it creates an object based on the first one, then it sees and then it tries to put a property based on the second one into it, and it just breaks. It doesn't work. So you have to be careful if you see that. But the code actually does as advertised. It works as advertised, and he has this documented that you're going to run into this stuff and have to be careful with it. Haven't seen it that much, but on a dir command, it's a pretty common thing, so be careful there. So just to show you that it works here, if I do it, it doesn't give any feedback. So if I do it on a dir command that only gives me files, no problem, just works. Yeah. I can actually, if I do this, it will show me. And you see that it has created an object of a data table. So this is a data row that comes out of it. And you can see the properties here from the directory. Oh, so it only works if you only have the one type. Now, put this up a bit. There's one more thing I'm doing. For the add SQL table, which will create a table in my schema, I have put a very simple error action behind it. Error action silently continue. This just means if the table is already there, you're going to get an error from SQL Server, ignore it, right? Very simple thing. Or else it will just bark at me and say, yeah, this table already exists. True. Now, let me throw away my schema, drop all staging. There we go. Show you that's not there. Refresh, zoom in. There we go. No schema, no staging tables, nothing. Now, let's run, not that, this. Let's run this. What I'm actually doing here, this is the command I'm running. Get service. So I'm getting a list of running and non-running services from this box, turning it into a data table, see if there's create a staging table from it, and load it into SQL Server. That's basically what I'm doing here. So let's do that here. Gives no response, but if we go in here, there we go, there's my staging. And if I query that, there you go. There's all the information that got out of that I got out of that PowerShell object. So very easy, right? Do whatever you want to do, and these three commands will stick it in your SQL Server staging area somehow, and then you can handle it from there on, right? I'm assuming you're fine if it's in the database. You'll be fine, right? I don't need to go into all the T-SQL stuff. So basically, very simple way to grab your stuff, stick it in the database. All right, let's continue. Got the right shortcut. Here we go. Yeah, go. So the repository database I'm making, I write everything to staging first and handle it from there. All these things that I do have some columns that I don't need, or I need to filter on them, or whatever I need to do. I start with staging, handle it from there. Not going to show you much. My demo has some SQL where I get something from the staging. I'm not going to show you how I put this into a normal repository, because this is not about the T-SQL. This is about the PowerShell. Like I said, I'm sure you're okay with the rest after that, right? I do have some things that are easy to know. I have a store procedure that I can feed a table name and the command pre or post. And then it will do some processing for me. Pre is empty the staging table, like truncate it. Post sometimes means, for instance, for the Brent Ozar thing, for SP Blitz, it means if you have something new, delete what you have and copy the new results. Keep one copy of Blitz results for every server. For Ola Hallengren's stuff, I have one column coming back, has maintenance solution. And I have one table that has a lot of columns with a lot of information. So I just do an update on that. It's a 1 or a 0 that comes out of that. I only want to know if I have it or not on this box. So that's what that does. All right. Aha, we're there already. Cool. So we're going to take all we just did, put it together in a huge, massive PowerShell script. You've got about an hour left, right? And make our super remoting system. But not really, it's not that hard. And that's it. Not that much, right? So let's go through it a little bit. Let's go up. I have a script root where I store my scripts. So in C remoting scripts, let me show you those. Scripts. Here's a bunch of scripts. I told you I have one script that does one thing. So I have one script to check if I have maintenance plans. I have one script to check if I have Ola's stuff on there. I have Blitz, which sort of kind of breaks my rule because it does 100 things. I have the dir thing still in there, but I'm not using it for here, and the get service one. So just to show you the maintenance solution thing. This is basically what I'm sending to the other box. This is what gets executed on the other box, and I'll open it up so it's easier to read in the ISE. This may be easier this way. Scripts as maintenance solution. There we go. So I have a parameter, and the parameter I pass with the invoke SQL command. It has a parameters option that I can feed it. And I connect to a box and I feed it the name of the instance that I want to connect to, because it can have multiple. I don't connect to all the instances on the box. I connect to one instance, one script, one instance, one command. If I have another instance on the same box, I connect twice. I want the results to be only about this instance. That's why I've split them all up. So there's 100 ways to do this. I'm using this one. The parameter gets passed through my script. I get the instance name. I load the assembly, SMO. That's why I'm using load with partial name. There is a new way, but this works on all my boxes. And, here is the new way. Add type assembly name. This only works on the newer boxes, not on Windows Server 2003. Now, then I get a connection to the instance that I gave through the parameter, and I form a query to check if Ola Hallengren's stuff is installed, and I'm basically only counting, and I get the server name as well, insist procedures in master if there's a command execute store procedure. That means it's installed. I figured out that probably means Ola's stuff is there. And all it gives me back is a column that says has maintenance solution and a 1 and a 0 and a server name. And that's all. That's what I run on the box. Now, the one for to show you the difference, maintenance plans is slightly different because the query differs per version of SQL Server. In above 2005, it's sysSSIS packages, and you have to check. Well, package type is 6, so basically maintenance plans are DTS packages or SSIS packages. You find them in msdb.dbo.sysSSIS packages, and if they're of type 6, that's a maintenance plan. Now you know they're on your box. 2005 and below, sysDTS packages, right? Below, I don't even know. Maybe there's another one. But the oldest, thank God, we have is 2005, right? Anyone still with 2000 around? Oh yeah, I know. Sorry. It's not even a bad database, but you can't look into the thing. You can't see what's going on. There's no the amount of time that we got used to DMVs is staggering. Right now we can't live without them anymore, right? You've written a whole tool to read 2005 stuff, right? You must have been annoyed with the 2000 lack of stuff as well, right? Yeah. So this is just to show you the slight difference there. So the only thing I do here is check for the SMO option instance.information.version.major. There is also an information. No, they're not even in information. There's just a version.major, but only for the newer ones. The 2005 one doesn't, and this one works on the 2005 one. This actually doesn't exist on the above 2005 one, so it doesn't give anything back. But this works. I got it to work. I'm happy with this. So that's what I'm running. I'll put it together. Here we go. That's what I'm running on the box. And all right, here we are. So the script root, that's where my scripts are. Then I make a function called getServerInfo. And I throw in a parameter, and I call this profile name. Because in my SQL Server, I have a table called profile that has a profile name and a script name. So here you can do whatever you want to do. Run this on all the dev boxes. Run this on all the production boxes. Right? This is what you do. So this is just my remoting demo profile, and that just runs all these scripts. You can make this as complicated as you want. If you want to have servers there as well, or this, for me, right now, in this demo, it just means if I say this profile, it will run these scripts. You can have a set of scripts. Make this as complicated as you want. Now, this is the dot sourcing of the community functions again, my add data table and such. And loading the assemblies, loading the credential, executing the stored procedure to get the profile that I've just entered. Executing it is here actually with the invoke SQL command 2. So now my scripts has the list of scripts, my scripts variable. Oop. What did I do there? Here we go. Here we are. Now I'm getting a bunch of instances from my system. I have server instance list for this demo. If you want to do a stored procedure, give it all kinds of parameters to get the exact amount of servers that you want to run certain scripts on, make this. This is not about T-SQL. You know how to do T-SQL, right? Just get a list of servers back in your preferred way. So that's what I'm doing here, and then simple loop for each server that I'm getting that I have to do something. I'll do it. I'll say server name is this, instance name is that, and then for each script in scripts, so all the scripts that I have, run those scripts on those servers, right? So I get the full script name. I get the table name, which is exactly the same as the name of the script, but without the extension. I don't want to have to specify this. I don't want to have a table somewhere that says this script should go in that table. No. If the script is called has maintenance solution, I will have a staging.has maintenance solution and stick it in there. This just don't specify these things. Just do it. Just infer this easier, right? Now, I'm printing out a warning message that I've started, And here's the actual command that does what I need to do. So it sticks the results in an invoke command window and command. And I give the computer name, the file path, the argument list with the instance name, which gets caught by my parameter in the script that I'm running. And I hand the credential that you just saw me do earlier, right? So this is all. And then you've seen these as well. Create a data table, add a SQL table, write the data table, reset the variables, reset the server level variables, and go back to the top of the loop. That's all I'm doing. And then this is the function. So this is the actual command. I'm printing a starting and a done message, and I run the command with the profile name that I want to run, and that's it. That's all I need to do. Now, let's see if it still works with me typing around in the thing. That would be cool. Always good if demos actually work, right? Let's kill this one. Let's kill this one. Let's drop all my staging tables. Let's see if they're actually gone. Yep, they're gone. All right. Well, let's just run this. And here we go. It just goes to the database, gets a list of servers, goes to the root of the scripts directory, gets all the scripts, makes a remoting connection to all these servers, runs all the scripts, sticks them all into the database, creates the tables if they need to, and that's it. How many lines did I have? Like 20 or something? This is how easy it is. This works on 1,000 servers. Doesn't matter. I'm connecting locally twice with localhost and the name of the computer. It doesn't matter how many servers you put in there. And to prove to you that it actually works, here we go. There's my tables. So now what I can do, for instance, and this is just a little silly demo, but based on real life, on a system, I'm now checking for all my servers, which ones do have backup failure errors. What's it called exactly? It's from SP Blitz, and it says, backups not performed recently. That's a check that the script does. So how many warnings for backups not performed recently do I have on a box? Are there maintenance plans installed, or are all our scripts installed? So I know how big the problem is and how I need to fix it, right? If there's maintenance plans installed, rip them out, put all our stuff in there. If all our stuff is there, probably configured wrongly or something. Let's see what we can do. Very simple. This is from practice. This now on 2 boxes. We've done this on hundreds of machines. And the first time we ran this query, we thought, oh, we've got some work to do this weekend. We got far more backup warnings than we thought. So we had a lot of checking to do. This can be scary the first time you see the results of this. Now, let's see where we are. Does this seem useful to you guys at all? Right, cool. I see a lot of heads nodding like, I can see why I can use that. Now, you can also run this in parallel. Don't start there. It's fairly simple to do. I'm not going to go too much detail on it, but you can run all these commands in parallel and wait for all the results to come back and then process them to make it go faster. Right now we're running this on a few hundred boxes, not in parallel. It's fast enough. We run it once a week on a Sunday. It's fine. If you need to do it, though, it's fairly simple to do. The invoke command just has an asJob parameter that will make it run in parallel. And it's very simple to do. So let me just show you the basics. No, let's go here. Let's go here. And where is the parallel? Here we go. So here I have the 2 jobs again. But now I'm starting them both at the same time, and at the end you can see I have an asJob parameter, which just runs them in parallel. If I do that, they're done right away, and I get a result where you can see I have 2 remote jobs, and they're both running. Now, if I want to get information on it, I'll just run getJob, and it will refresh the information, and now you can see I have the same 2 jobs, but they're completed now, because all they did was get a list of services, so they're already done. Now, to get the results of the job, you give the command receive job, and the name of the job or the ID of the job, and you can loop through them if you want to. What I usually see is a loop that checks for jobs that are done, and if they're all done, get the results, or the ones that are done, get the results, or yeah, you can figure out how this works, right? So if I do a receive job, that's the result, right? Same thing, but now in parallel. And once you've done it, if you do it again, nothing. Once you've received the result, empty, right? I can actually, if I do get job again, you can see has more data in the top one, which says false. So I have already received all the information, and it just sits there and it does nothing anymore. And this is how you remove them. Very simple. Just say remove job. Now if I do get job, ooh, not that one. Get job. There's only one, right? Simple. And if you want to clean them all up, just do get job, pipe them into remove job, and they're all gone, right? Now here's a little shortcut. The receive job actually has a wait thing that will wait for the job to be done. So it won't be parallel, it will just sit there, but you can make it wait for all of the jobs at once. So I've got 2 commands that get me all the SQL jobs, the SQL services that are running, SQL-related services, I should say, and it will just wait for all of them, and when they're done, it will stick the results into one parameter and show them. So you see it? Did you see it waiting for like a second or something, like half a second? The problem is only that you have to be careful with your result. You won't be able. Okay, because of the resolution, you can't see the computer name anymore. But because it was parallel for 2 jobs at once, it just got the results mixed up. Whatever it got back first is in there. It's not in a nice, neat order. So be careful with that one. Again, if you stick it into a table in SQL Server, it don't have to tell you what to do, right? So this is very simple how you add parallelism to this remoting stuff. And we're good on time. Excellent. Now, see if I can get the right keys. Now, some notes that I ran into. We were not as stupid as to just run a command that we just come up with and see how it worked on all the servers. I've written this, can we run it, right? We have test boxes, a test environment. This became pretty complicated after a while because they had Windows Server 2003, 5, the whole everything, all kinds of versions and service packs, and they had clusters, and some were virtualized, and before you've got this all in a test environment, that was pretty complicated. My personal favorite for making test environments is VMware Workstation, just because you can have virtual hypervisors inside a virtual machine. Meaning, we're now working on scripts that will scan a whole Hyper-V host, so all the virtual machines on a host. We're doing more than just SQL Server now with the thing. And I can have Hyper-V servers inside a VMware virtual machine. So I have a test system with 2 Hyper-V servers inside 2 VMware Workstation machines, and they can fail over to each other. You can actually switch on Hyper-V inside a virtual machine and make virtual machines inside it. So you have virtual machines inside your virtual machine. Pretty cool. Also, if you're rolling this out, if you're installing this stuff, if you do enable PS remoting on all your machines, don't and install, because I forgot to tell you here, the SP Blitz, I have it scheduled. It will run on a Sunday and store the information in a table, and all this script does is grab it from that table, because that's quicker. If I have to wait for SP Blitz to be completed, it takes a bit longer. So not just for this demo, but in real life I do the same thing. I just schedule it on a Sunday and run it and grab it from there. You will run it first once and then look through the results, and then you see problems. on all the servers that you install it on, and you'd think, why don't I fix this already? Don't do that. Your manager will think that all the time you're spending is spent on implementing this, not on fixing this. So implement it first, show your manager the huge list that comes out, then fix it. Right? Okay. 3 exclamation marks, I hope it's enough. Be careful with automated changes, right? We're now thinking about rolling out a new version of scripts that need to be on the server, because SP Blitz needs to be installed on the box and some other stuff that we're using. There was another company, this is not asking for a friend, there was actually another company that this happened, and I'm not telling you which one, but a guy ran a script that he ran on the wrong moment of the day and with the wrong profile, and it ran on all the servers, caused a reboot of all the servers in the middle of the day. He got fired, right? Be careful. Yeah? Most bigger companies, very simple procedure. You can query all you want, as long as you want to change a little thing, change procedure, right? Ask for permission of the owner of the thing. You're the DBA, not the owner of the process that runs on the box. Be careful there. Make your environment secure. Showed you how to secure these passwords already. Don't stick them on a file server that everybody can connect to, because you have just created a system that says, run whatever is in this directory with admin rights on all these boxes. All an evil guy needs to do is stick a file in that directory that does something that you don't want to happen, right? Or run it under lower credentials that have less rights. But for monitoring systems, this can be a trouble, right? Most monitoring systems have very high rights, but play around with it. Maybe you have a secure environment where these 3 or 5 machines need special attention, and run them under different credentials with less rights, and then monitor less, or prepare more and just read it from the box. Something like that. You figure it out. Also, know when your data is stale, right? Don't assume that all your data is recent. Have something in place that alerts you, hey, you're looking at this Blitz result, but it's actually 10 weeks old because we haven't been able to connect to the box anymore. The system was running fine, but you've been ignoring the warning messages. We did this little manual field in the server list, so my colleague could quickly work on a few servers, change the zeros to ones in the manual field, and just run the command by hand and type -manual, and it will grab only those servers and run your scripts. It's a really quick way to concentrate on a few servers. And also a thing that I advise you to do is look for instances of SQL Server that you didn't know you had. Query the get services and parse it for instances, and compare it with your list. You'll be surprised. I think each and every one of you are running more SQL servers than you think you do. Bold statement, right? I've been surprised every time, everywhere I go. I've had DBAs tell me, no, I know exactly how many I have. And then he'd be wrong like 50% or something. Some special things like clusters. If you connect to the Windows cluster name, that doesn't have to be not necessarily that you land on the box that actually runs the active instance of SQL Server. SQL Server has a virtual name as well. That could be on a different box, so be careful there, because you won't maybe be able to log on to the system, right? Make sure you know where you are when you're doing remoting. That set item thing, this is how you switch on connecting to non-trusted systems with an IP address. Doesn't secure anything. People say, don't use star, just make a list. Doesn't matter. This is on the box where you're connecting from and not to. So you're already an admin on this box. What does it matter if you have a list in place? Just put a star in there. If you're security conscious and somebody says, no star anywhere. Okay, fine. Put a list of servers in. Be my guest. But this doesn't really secure anything. Also, inside your own domain, if you're just using a server name, you don't need this. Just ignore that. We're almost there. So some sources where I got this stuff. BrentOzar.com for the SP Blitz, OlaHallandengren.com for his maintenance solution. Do look into that. Best backup scripts and maintenance scripts ever. The Chad Miller stuff, if you search for Chad Miller out data table, you'll find the link to TechNet with all the other scripts as well. SQL PowerDoc is an alternative, fairly large alternative of what I'm doing here. Maybe you find that interesting, so take a look at that as well, by Kendall Van Dyke. And I will be loading up all this stuff that you saw here, hopefully this afternoon. Not this evening, because I'll be having a drink with some of you, right? Hopefully. So, finally, we just have 3 minutes left, so I can take a few questions, but after this session, I'll just be out there if you want to ask me anything, even on the cannabis, which I already told you I know nothing about. Be my guest. I'll be here. Any questions? Ooh, I was going to say everybody is hot and wants to get outside the door. Go ahead.
You had issues with not closing your PS sessions and saturating the session pool.
Yeah, so especially that one not so much. So issues with PS session where the session pool doesn't get closed and you get in trouble with running out of resources. Not so much there. Runs fine on hundreds of boxes. Where we are running in trouble is when using parallel remoting, is where you run out of resources there. And we're looking into a system right now with a queue and only do 10 of them at the same time to do remote stuff on. So remote out to 10 or 20 or 30 machines, wait until you're done, 30 more. Right? That's the thing we're using. Any more questions? All right. So they have, I think, paper-written eval forms. It's basically the only thing I'm getting in return for this, except for a beer here and there from somebody. I would love you to fill this out and be honest about this. If there's something with numbers on it, I don't really care much about those. This is not a competition, but I do want to learn from my presentation. So if you have comments for me, please write them down. I love the ones that say, you seem like a nice guy, but, and then tell me something about how I can improve myself. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and thank you very much.